Hi, good evening, everyone. Michael Wright is Chair of the Board of Trustees for BH Live, which consists of Bournemouth International Centre, the Pavilion Theatre and Leisure Centres in Bournemouth, plus venues in Portsmouth and the Fairfield Halls in Croydon. He was a member of the Board of Dorset Chamber of Commerce, having been President for 2 years during his career as Managing Director of NewsQuest Dorset, publishers of the Bournemouth Echo and the Dorset Echo. He was also chair of the New Forest Show Marketing Committee for 11 years, and he has been chairman of Hampshire Fair, the county-wide group supporting Hampshire food and drink producers, for 10 years. So over to you, Michael.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the introduction. One of the things that people will no doubt ask is, why on earth did you end up as chairman of Hampshire Fair when you have no connection with farming or anything to do with growing anything or anything to do with any kind of food production? And hopefully at some point in this talk this evening, I'll be able to address that point. But it's a question I asked myself at the beginning as well. What I want to cover this evening is the history of Hampshire Fair, a very brief history, the purpose of Hampshire Fair, before and after 2011, and I'll explain why that's relevant, our achievements, pre-COVID and post-COVID, and finally some recommendations from me, but more of that a bit later on. Hampshire Fair was formed in 1991 by 8 local food producers who decided that Hampshire was underrepresented in terms of its farming background, the produce it produced, and they wanted to get the name of some of the products better known, not just in Hampshire, but across the country. And one of the ladies who formed Hampshire Fair was involved in a breeding project to get back to the original Hampshire hog. Now, the original Hampshire hog was bred predominantly for bacon, and it was a breed that died out, but she was very keen to get back to it, and it involved crossbreeding with wild boar to try and get back to the original hog. And the reason I mention that is because I hope some of you have had a chance to have a look at Hampshire Fair, and you will notice that our logo is the Hampshire hog. But that Hampshire hog came from a particular illustration. And again, do take the time to look up this guy because he's very interesting. But the illustration came from a design that was done for a bag for the Hampshire House Bakery. And on the illustration, it had a wheat sheaf and the Hampshire hog. And it was done by a chap called Eric Gill. Now, Eric Gill is a really interesting character in the sense that he's predominantly known as a sculptor, and some of his sculptures are on the front of Broadcasting House, the BBC's original home. And he also designed a lot of typefaces, including Gill Sans Serif, which if you use your computer and you scroll down, you'll find Gill Sans Serif as one of the options. He was also involved in designing the typeface for the London Underground, because before it was designed by Eric Gill and Edward Johnson, all the different stations had different typefaces for their names, but Eric Gill and Edward Johnson set about designing a particular typeface for it. So as you can probably gather, we're quite proud of our logo. It's something quite original, but do look up Eric Gill because he's a very unusual character. So worth following up. In 1996, this group of producers approached Hampshire County Council and said, would you support us and could you help us to further this sector because of the number of people who are employed in producing produce in Hampshire? All credit to Hampshire County Council, they did. Not only did they support it, but they fully funded it. So they created an office with a manager and staff with everything paid for by Hampshire County Council. And the membership of Hampshire Fair grew quite slowly, but it grew to 130 people by 2011. So quite a reasonable success and quite an interesting start. The purpose of Hampshire Fair was to promote Hampshire's food, drink and crafts inside and outside of the county. So there's 2 different strategies there, creating awareness from consumers inside the county and also creating awareness outside of the county. And I'll explain some of the things we've done about that a bit later on. We have three types of members, and we're quite fussy about what they have to do to be members. The first one is a producer, and they need to include at least 30% of their product must be sourced locally. The second type is hospitality, which is obviously hotels, restaurants, etc. And the third type is services to members, which is basically trade organizations. So we have three types of member, and they are pretty much evenly split 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 across the membership base. Members are very good at what they do, and particularly producers and hospitality members, but they're not very good at some things. They're not very good at marketing. They're not very good at promotions or pricing or routes to market, because they spend so much of their time on the day job. And the number of conversations that I've had with people about, well, you invented this product and it's really good and it tastes really good, but what are you going to do with it? And they say, I don't know. And then you go into discussions about packaging, about bottles, about how supermarkets will stock it, etc. And these are the areas that people know very little about. And this is where Hampshire Fair is really very, very good indeed at helping them. We connect members to the support they need. And pre-COVID, we had a monthly networking meeting, which was attended by 50 to 90 people typically. And in that meeting, we would go around the room and join up people who had a specific need with someone who'd either had a similar experience to them or could solve their problem. It's an opportunity for us to promote their products, and we'd show them the best way to sell them. We also hold regular meet the buyer meetings with supermarket groups and in some cases farm shops. If they're a big enough farm shop to warrant doing it, we will set up a meeting with 10 to 15 producers and a particular outlet, whether it's a supermarket or a farm shop, and let them taste the products and try them. So that's what Hampshire Fair does in a nutshell. I have to say to you, I could talk for an hour on the things that Hampshire Fair actually does, but I just want to give you a flavour of the kind of thing we do. Right, let's go back to before and after 2011 and why 2011. I retired in 2011 and I was playing golf with a colleague of mine, and he said, what do you know about Hampshire Fair? And I said, absolutely nothing. And he told me about it, and I said, it sounds really interesting. And he said, well, that's good, because I put your name forward as chairman. And as they say in all the best stories, the rest is history. I was interviewed by the then manager of Hampshire Fair and some of the members, and took on the role as chairman, expecting really just to run an existing steady ship. What I encountered was something quite different. I didn't know at the time that they were looking for someone with a completely different background and a commercial background. But I quickly found out the reason why, and it was because Hampshire County Council were coming under increasing pressure in terms of funding and being able to fund the kind of organisations like Hampshire Fair. And to put it very simply, Hampshire County Council said, if you think this is such a good idea, and you think there's such a need for it, we'll give you 3 years to prove the point. So for 3 years, we'll give you tapered funding. By that I mean we'll start off with a higher amount in year 1 and reduce it so that by year 4 there's nothing. And you've got to go away and prove that Hampshire Fair works and find ways of supporting it. And we will give you office accommodation for 1 of those years. After 6 months, they withdrew the office accommodation. But we set about looking for ways of making this work. And we really believed that Hampshire Fair was good for its members. So we drew up a strategy and a plan. We looked for sponsors and had a lot of success with sponsors. And we looked for platforms to make this work better for sponsors. And I'll come on to that a bit later on, but we were quite successful in identifying areas that sponsors would be interested in and that would enable them to engage with Hampshire Fair and Hampshire Fair's members. So off we went in 2011. And I suppose the next question is, how did we do and what were our achievements? Well, as I'm speaking to you now, our membership is 360 people. Now, I am particularly pleased about that personally, because that is after nearly a year of COVID, and the pressures on our food producers and the hospitality sector are huge, as you can well imagine, because of the amount of time they're spent being closed. And if the hospitality sector is closed, then consumers who use local produce don't actually use it. So our members are 360. We now send out a monthly e-newsletter to all of our members. We send out a consumer newsletter to over 20,000 people who are registered for information about Hampshire Fair. That's across the whole of the country, with quite a big amount in London. We've developed the annual Hampshire Fair Food Festival, which is now in its 20th year. And the food festival, we didn't hold it last year for fairly obvious reasons, but each year the food festival in the month of July has 70 events that are put on and created by Hampshire Fair's members. And they enable the public to engage with all sorts of activities, from literally an evening on the farm to a high-class dinner at a restaurant or whatever with a Hampshire menu, all sorts of things that they wouldn't normally get the chance to do. Right. So how do we judge Hampshire Fair's success? Well, our membership is strong, as I said. We have been very fortunate in terms of our performance, in terms of awards and recognition for our efforts. We've won 4 gold awards from Tourism South East in the last 10 years for the tourism event of the year, which was the Hampshire Food Festival. We've won 11 business awards in the last 10 years. We won one in January of this year for Community Business of the Year in the South Coast Business Awards. And all of the time, in all of these awards, when people mention it, they recognise the impact the Hampshire Fair has on the local community. We are local, local, local. That is our key aim, and we want to champion local. We relaunched the Great Sausage and Pie Awards, which always raises a smile with people. But if I tell you we did it because of the pressure that local butchers were under, and over 100 local butchers enter every year. The last year we did it, again, which was 2019 because of COVID, we had 280 products entered into it. And all of these butchers want to display any gold award that they win for their products, particularly the sausages. And does it have an economic benefit? Well, yes, it does, because not in 2019, but in 2018, the winner of the sausage competition had an order from the army to supply all of the army in Hampshire with their sausages. So it's not just for the kudos of the recognition, it's actually got practical economic benefits. We also launched Hampshire Charcuterie. Now, the thing about this is that about 5 years ago, the price of pigs literally dropped and dropped and dropped, and it got to the stage where it was nearly not economical to breed them. We applied for funding from the Prince's Trust to support a project to teach Hampshire pig producers how to make charcuterie. And the reason we wanted to do it is because the UK imports over £40 million worth of charcuterie every year, mainly from the EU. We got over a professional to teach them, and we now have a thriving charcuterie sector in Hampshire, producing some very high quality award-winning products. We also published the annual Local Produce Guide. Now, this guide is available online, and if you go onto Hampshire Fair's website, look under Why Buy Locally, you will be able to access this guide in a page-turning format where you can look at all of the various sectors I've been talking about, and you can pick out your own favourite suppliers or people you might want to try. It's 134 pages, full of local information and great fun and a great insight into where you can go in Hampshire and where you can enjoy local produce in Hampshire. So if you don't manage to pick up a hard copy, do take the time to have a look on the website and have a look at what's going on. I've picked out a couple of individual success stories just to show you the kind of thing that Hampshire Fair's done. The first one is Chalk Stream Foods, who are producers of trout. And Chalk Stream Foods 4 years ago were producing a lot of £1 trout for the supermarkets. They were producing them particularly for Sainsbury's and Asda. And the supermarkets would phone up and say, we want 200 trout tomorrow. And Chalk Stream Foods would kill 200 trout. And then they would get a phone call saying, actually, we've changed our mind, we only want 150. And this went on a regular basis. And if I then tell you that those trout were sent up to Scotland to be processed and then sent back down to a distribution warehouse to go out to the supermarkets, you realize how daft this exercise was. So Chalk Streams looked for another route, and they came up with the idea of making the trout bigger, £3 plus, creating trout fillets and smoking them and putting them back into the market, particularly through restaurants. And the rest is history. They have been a phenomenal success. We have Hattingley Valley Vineyards, which has also been a huge success and started with Hampshire Fair, producing sparkling wine. Little Bee Bakery, who started with a lady making cakes in her kitchen. And now she employs 8 people in a small factory unit and supplies all sorts of people with cakes. And again, before COVID, we were putting a lot of produce onto Carnival cruises, including 2 ton of Hampshire cheese every month. And that's again because of an approach by Hampshire Fair to Carnival saying, why don't you stock local products? So, and I'm conscious of the time, I don't want to overrun. So pre-COVID, we did the things that I've been talking to you about. Post-COVID, a lot of those have had to stop. But we did look at what our members particularly needed and launched a campaign called Stay Loyal, Stay Local, which has been hugely successful. And we also helped a lot of our members produce an online business, creating a new website, creating the commercial backup to be able to sell online. We produced a directory of local producers and farm shops where you could click and collect or you could order online. And again, that's on our website. And this directory of online producers is reviewed every week, and we add any new members that come up with it. We're in the process of doing a lot of planning with Hampshire County Council on the reopening of hospitality and how we can get people back into restaurants quickly. We're also in the middle of producing a new guide to Loddon and Test Valley, showing all of the local food producers, local food outlets, and interesting places to visit in the Test Valley and the Loddon Valley, and that's in conjunction with Visit Hampshire. And we're also creating a lot of corporate events for our members as and when we can get out and about. So that, in a quick nutshell, and I think I'm on 22 minutes now, is Hampshire Fair. But I am going to take the opportunity to recommend a few things to you. But I must stress, and particularly as in view of it's being recorded, this is not in my official capacity as the chairman of Hampshire Fair. This is Mike Wright as a private individual giving you a few tips. You will all have different interests and you will all have different things that you particularly like, but have a look at our guide online. If you're looking for a particular thing, I'm sure you'll be able to find it. But here's some tips from me. The first one is from Chalk Stream Foods, and it's hot smoked trout. And the important bit is hot, not cold. If you haven't tried hot smoked trout and you like smoked salmon, boy, oh boy, are you missing something. This is really, really good. So do try that. I thought I didn't like gin until I tried Conker gin. And Conker is made from gorse flowers in the botanicals that flavour the gin. It's absolutely lovely. But I have to say to you, Hampshire Fair has got some other very, very high quality gins, one of which won the best in class, which was Test Valley Gin. And again, have a look at our website, but they're good. Next one, Hampshire cheeses. Two cheeses made by Hampshire cheeses. One is Tunworth, which Raymond Blanc said is the best camembert in the world. And stop and think about that for a minute. The second one is Winslade. They're both made by Tunworth. They're both award-winning and they're both superb. Next one is Bark and Blue cheese, which was a winner in the World Cheese Awards. And again, another Hampshire Fair member. Next one, Laverstoke Mozzarella. Now, I was lucky enough to test this with the guy who owns Laverstoke. And if any of you are interested in motor racing, it's Jody Scheckter, the former world champion. And we tested all of their mozzarella from literally a few hours old up to 3 days old. And all of it was fabulous. And I've bought it ever since. You can buy it in Waitrose. It's really good. And again, you might be surprised if you think you don't like mozzarella, because this is really nice. And try it with tomato, olive oil, basil, and just a little bit of black pepper, and you can't go wrong. It's really good. Next one, sparkling wine. Now, why sparkling wine? 10 years ago, English wine used to be a joke. It's not a joke anymore. It's really serious. It's so serious that it regularly beats champagne in world wine contests. And the reason is very simple. Chalk that champagne is grown on goes under the channel and comes up in Sussex and Hampshire. Up until recently, the climate wasn't right for growing grapes. But because of climate change, it is. So now you have a plethora of English wine growers in Sussex and Hampshire. Hampshire has 46 vineyards, many of which have got gold medals for their wine. Have a look and see which one you fancy. It's hard to choose, but couple of quick tips. Black Chalk won a gold medal in the World Wine Awards this year. Hattingley Valley consistently wins gold medals for its rosé and its classic Souvee. So those are my tips. Those are some of my favorites. Have a look at the website and see what you can find for yourself from Hampshire Fair. And thank you very much for inviting me this evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Mike, so the way we get our hands on these delicious items are to go onto your website, are they?
If you go on the website, you'll find that a lot of them are stocked in local farm shops.
Right.
A lot of them supply online, and many of them are in supermarkets. For example, the Southern Co-op, who are a supporter of Hampshire Fair, have a local flavours range, which has got 21 local flavours in it. Now, the reason I mentioned Southern Co-op, and it is confusing this, you need to check whether your local co-op is from the national co-op or from the local Southern Co-op based in Portsmouth. For example, in Chandler's Ford, which is near to where I live, in the high street there is the main co-op, and round the corner in Hursley Road there is the Southern Co-op. One will have local produce, one will not. But the co-op generally, there's quite a lot of branches that sell it. But if you go onto our website, you'll find suppliers where you can get these things.
Thanks, Mike. Mike, and before we go on to questions, can everybody make sure they got a drink? So when we drink our toast to our visitors, that they've got something in your hands, please. The first question, Mike, is from James DePage asking, would it be possible to have a regular Hampshire Fair market in Southampton?
I need to touch on farmers markets and Hampshire Fair. And at the same time that Hampshire Fair was taken into Hampshire County Council, Hampshire Farmers Markets was launched by the then Economic Development Manager of Hampshire County Council, a lady called Frances Stokes. For some reason, which is beyond my comprehension, before I got involved, they were split out, and Hampshire Farmers Markets was given its own identity and left Hampshire County Council. So although we work with them, we are not part of them.
I see.
And we do support them, actively support them. You'll find them on our website, and you'll find all the information about where the markets are. The feedback I get from Hampshire Farmers Markets is that Southampton is a very difficult market for them. I can't begin to tell you why, whereas conversely, Winchester is very strong, Southsea is very strong, Ringwood is very strong, but Southampton is not.
Oh, right. Right. That's a shame. I think what Mike's saying is that he's a separate organisation, aren't you, Mike?
Yeah, having said that, we were, before the outbreak of COVID, we were about to do one in Bedford Place. And it was all planned and set up. Hampshire Fair were going to do their own Hampshire Fair market as part of a Bedford Place Retailers Association activity. But of course, COVID stopped that. And we will revisit that. We'd like to do that. We think it would be a good idea.
Yeah. I was wondering, how big are the producers? I mean, do they vary very largely in size? Do you get very tiny ones and very big ones?
We literally get that, very tiny ones and very big ones. I'll tell you a little story about Tunworth cheese. The lady who makes Tunworth cheese, her husband was the deputy editor of Country Life, and she got bored at home. So she decided she was going to do something, and she decided she was going to make cheese. And she's a bit of a perfectionist, so she spent ages perfecting Tunworth. And the cattle, literally, where the milk comes from, the cattle are milked less than a mile from where the cheese is made. So she made this cheese, and she worked at it, and we supported her to take it to various events, etc. She took it to Neal's Yard Dairy in London, who thought it was fantastic. They stocked it, and she was making about 300 cheeses a week, which is quite a lot for a small organisation. And I know I've had a go at making it, so it's quite a lot. Waitrose got hold of it, and Waitrose said, we'd like to stock it, and we'd like at least 600 a week and maybe 1,000 a week, depending on how it goes. And that was, as you can imagine, is a bit of a challenge, because there's not just the manufacture of the cheese, there's a maturing period that goes with it. So it's quite tricky. The next thing she encountered was the Christmas period, when Waitrose said, we would like 3,000 a week at Christmas. Now, how on earth, as a small food producer, do you do that? And one of the things I say to members at the early stage of their membership is, if you think you'd like to get into a supermarket, be careful what you wish for, because you need to be able to grow at that rate. If it takes off, they will want you to increase your production to match the demand. And Tunworth did take off. And fortunately, they went full circle, and it became so popular, and it's been used in so many TV programs. And that's something else Hampshire Fair does, by the way. We saw food producers to appear in TV programs. So the Hairy Bikers, James Martin, Raymond Blanc, you go through the list. We've supplied all of them with food producers who do stuff locally, Jamie and Jimmy and whatever. We do that all of the time. But that's part of the problem with local food. We have got some very big food producers.
Yeah. James has suggested when we're not in lockdown, we like to go for a walk once a month, or have a meal at a different place every month. And James suggested that we could go close to Hockey's Farm Shop, because they produce their own sausages, which seems a great idea. I do like that. We raise money for charity every year.
So John from Hockey's Farm Shops joined the meeting.
Ah.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. You'll be most welcome to visit.
Ah.
Jonathan, give us 5 minutes on the farm shop.
Okay. We have a small farm shop in between Ringwood and Fordingbridge. My wife and I bought it about 7 years ago. It was on its knees, and with James's help and financial advice, we've now turned it around, and we've improved the turnover from. I'll give you some. It's 5 times higher than it was when we went there.
How did you do that, Jonathan? I mean, it's not easy, is it? You've got to really work at it.
Well, I'm going to bring Terry in here as well, because Terry was my boss at Middlebrook and Weston. James was the finance director, and I pretty much learned everything about the food industry at Middlebrook and Weston. So I took that knowledge with me and just did the things we did there. We brought in more product range. We engaged with Hampshire Fair New Forest Mark, other local food producers. So I think we've got 38 local suppliers in the shop, and we work very hard.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to visiting
If I
you.
remember rightly, Jonathan, you won an award as well at the Hampshire Life Awards, didn't you?
We won a Hampshire Life Award. We've won Campaign for Protection of Rural England Award. We were a finalist in the best small shop in the UK. We came third, I think, in the best small farm shop with the Guild of Fine Food. So yeah, we've
Very good.
done quite well.
Terry, do you want to add anything? You're muted. Unmute. That's it.
No, I went to your shop this week, actually, John.
Oh, thank you, Terry.
I think we
Spent lots of money.
we spent something like £15, but I decided I couldn't afford the meat, you know.
Well, the average basket spend is 20, Terry, so you've got to up your game a bit.
I'll try, John, but well done anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's an interesting question here, Michael, from Anthony Rowe, asking how Brexit has affected you, if at all.
The reason I asked that, Mike, is that you said 30% of produce is local, maybe increasing with the charcuterie having come from the continent now. But is there other produce that was coming from the continent, is coming from the continent, and are there problems if there is food coming from the continent, from Europe?
There isn't so much for our producers, but there are problems with food. There's no doubt about it. I get a weekly DEFRA newsletter about what's going on, and as you would expect, and if we take out the media hype, there are a lot of teething problems with Brexit, particularly in terms of the time it's taking, not just for produce to get from the UK into the EU, but the other way around too. And you will have seen a piece on the news about flowers recently, I think, that was on saying it's adding typically a day to the time it takes flowers to get into the UK. It's kind of inevitable. We don't have that. We have a lot of producers who export to non-EU countries. And one of the interesting ones is sparkling wine, which is huge in America. And our producers are being chased by American wholesalers who want to sell Hampshire sparkling wine. It's very popular. And so is the produce from Sussex. And to be fair, you know, Ridgeview and Night Timber are also very well-known sparkling wines.
Yeah, thank you. It seems that we're getting held up, our stuff going out, or coming the other way from France and Holland. It seems to me that we should retaliate for our, you know, if we won't allow the Dutch tulips in, for example, which are going to be coming in fairly shortly. But that's another discussion. Obviously, you're talking about Hampshire in general.
I think the interesting thing to bear in mind is who sends how much to who. And the answer is that they send more to us than we send to them. So however you dress this up, they've got more to lose. And you know, if you look at the UK is the second biggest market for German cars. If you look at French and Italian wine and how much of that is bought in the UK, it's not difficult. It will settle down. It can only be a matter of time before it settles down. It just needs to go through the process, basically.
I'm sure.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
Right, I've run out of questions on the chat. Has anybody got any? Has anybody want to wave and raise any more questions? So that was really interesting. James.
Michael, both New Forest and our club are supporting food banks, Karen's from the Big Difference. Is there any way, and through John at Petty Wood, we've got stock to give out to people. Is there any way we can link in with any of your food producers who to save food going to waste that can at least go to vulnerable, needy families at the moment?
Have you heard of an organisation called Too Good to Go?
Yes.
We supply them.
Okay.
All of our members supply them, and they coordinate the distribution of any produce like that.
Okay. Maybe you could ping me a contact. afterwards, if you be kind enough.
Yeah, I'll try.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Neville, you had a question.
Well, not a question. The Hampshire hog is actually a sheep, not a pig originally.
Look, I've heard this
So it
discussion.
shouldn't be a pig, it should be a sheep.
Yeah, I've heard this discussion, and according to Hampshire County Council, it's not true.
They're wrong. They're wrong.
Well, they need to move that big bronze statue outside the council offices then.
They do indeed.
Well, thanks for that constructive comment, Neville.
Yeah, but I have heard the comment, and I think there is a sheep called the Hampshire hog too. You're right. Yeah.
It's a hogget. It's a young sheep under a year old.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I think I'd much rather have it as a hog, actually, Neville. Really, I will bow to your greater time in Hampshire. Yeah. If you've got no more questions, then can I call on Sean to unmute himself and give a vote of thanks?
Thank you, Michael. Unfortunately, I spent more time listening to you than actually writing notes because my mind was going, because I do the magazine as well, you see. So now I'm thinking, now we can get you roped into this as well, because I think a few little articles about some of your producers and how they've grown will be...
We can supply you with things like that, absolutely. We have a PR. I should have said, and it was very remiss of me, when I talk to people about Hampshire Fair, they assume we've got about 20 staff. We've actually got 2 full-timers and 2 part-timers, including me, and I'm a part-timer. And one of them is a PR person who does nothing else but write information about Hampshire Fair and its members. And I'm sure I can link you up with that. So if you want to go through James with your email, get it to me, and I will do the rest to link you up, and you can get any information you want.
And I'll be sending you the video to pass.
Okay. Oh, well, that's fine then. Yeah, that's great.
So,
I'll pick it up from that.
Yeah, apart from that, I just find it staggering that there's so many businesses in Southampton, yet we're dealing with this big island over the water who are absolutely useless. And most of our stuff doesn't go anywhere. You know, I think we should push local products far more than we do, personally. And I think we could probably arrange something there.
Yeah, that's a good thought. Yeah, well done, Sean.
So on that note, I'm not going to waste any more time. Can I ask everybody to show your thanks in the usual way?
Thank you.